Hello, and welcome to the APA Referencing Basics session. My name is Fotini Leventakou. I'm the Senior Coordinator of Reference and Instruction Services at John S. Bailey Library, and at the bottom of your screen you may see my contact information. My email is fleventakou@acg.edu, and my extension number is 1434. I'm going to start with the learning objectives of this session. So by the end of it, you will be able to create bibliographic citations of basic types of sources, and you will be able to cite sources in your text properly. So let's begin. I'm going to start by saying a few things about what APA style actually is. So the APA style is the style of the American Psychological Association. This is what APA actually stands for. It is a style which is used in the social sciences, in business, and recently here at DRI, it has started being used in the writing program as well. What is important for you to remember is that the APA referencing style is what we call an author date style. This means that emphasis is given on who has written a source, as well as on when this source was published. The APA referencing style is also a set of guidelines that determine, first of all, how we create bibliographies, and second, how we create proper in-text citations. And since I mentioned the term citation, let's define what a citation actually is. So a citation is a written reference to a specific work or part of it that has been produced, created, written by a particular author, creator, editor, composer. And this written reference clearly identifies where we can find this work. There are two different types of citations. So sources are cited both in the bibliography of a paper, and these are called bibliographic citations or references, but they are also cited in the main body of the paper, inside the text, and this is why these are called in-text citations. Let's start with bibliographies and bibliography creation. And before we go into details, let's actually make sure we all understand what a bibliography actually is. So a bibliography is what? It is a list of references to sources cited in the text of an article, a book, a report, whatever. And usually this list of references appears at the end of the work. So we mentioned what a bibliography is. What is an APA bibliography? An APA bibliography has some characteristics. The first characteristic is that it is not called a bibliography, it's called references. That's why the label references always appears at the top of an APA bibliography. Second characteristic, an APA bibliography includes references in alphabetical order by the name of the author. And third characteristic, an APA bibliography requires that each one of the references listed in it includes 4 elements. These are the following: the name of the author of the source, the date of publication, the title of the source, as well as the location of the source, where it can be found, and each one of these elements is separated from the next with a full stop. Okay, so punctuation in APA is important. So let's see an example of a list of references. A list of references in APA format looks something like what you have on your screen. It starts with the label references, and I'm going to use my mouse pointer to just show you where this is. So it starts with the label references at the top, and then all the references are listed in alphabetical order by the name of the author. So we see Berg, we see Carr, Chen, Cooper. These all start with the same letter. That's why we alphabetize them based on the second letter. So that's why Carr is first, Chen is second, and Cooper third. And then we have E for Ellis, J for Jackson, P for Prensky, and U for the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So I'm repeating, the references are listed in alphabetical order by the name of the author. And what else did we say about an APA list of references? We said that each one of the references comprises specific elements. So these are the author. Every single reference has authors, and we can see that there are variations of authors. We may have one author, two authors, three authors, a group author. We will have the opportunity to see those variations as we proceed. Then the second element is the date. So all references have a date. We will see how we present dates later on. Then all references have a title, the title of the source. Again, here we have variations which we will discuss later on. And we conclude the references with a location element, which is actually the element that tells us what type of a source this is. And the elements that are the sub-elements actually that are included in the location element differ depending on the type of source. So let's take them one by one, starting with the authors. The first thing I want to mention about the authors is that we always present authors in reverse order. What does this mean? It means that we start with the last name. In the first example, the last name is Jackson. We continue with a comma, and then the initials of the first and middle name of the author. Okay, now this is the way names of authors are presented in the list of references in reverse order. Now, the first example was an example of a source by one author. What do we do if we have to cite a source written by more than one authors? Should we include all of them? APA says that if a source is written by 2 and up to 20 authors, then yes, we need to include all of them. In the example I have on the screen right now, I have selected a source by 4 authors: Deacon D, Pickering M, Golding P, Murdoch G. How do we present them? In reverse order, as we mentioned earlier. But since they are many, we separate them with commas, the one from the other. And we also place an ampersand before the last author. Now, what happens if we have more than 20 authors? In that case, APA says that we should include the first 19 names listed on the source. So what is underlined on your screen are the first 19 authors of an article, presented in reverse order, separated with commas, as we mentioned earlier. After the 19th name, we have a comma and 3 ellipsis points, and we finish up with the last author. So if we have more than 20 authors, we include the first 19 separated with commas. We put an ellipsis, 3 ellipsis points after the 19th, and we finish up with the last author. In the case of a group author, and when I say a group author, I mean an organization, a company, an institution. In that case, we need to present the name of the group in full. So even if a group author is famous by its abbreviation, like for instance UNESCO, we will not include the abbreviation in the list of references. We will need to write it out and replace it with, in this case, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. So group authors are always presented in full in the list of references. Lastly, what do we do if we do not have an author? If a source does not have an author, in that case, we replace the author with the title of the source. In the example on the screen, Rolling Out Digital Literacy is the title of an article with no identified author. That's why what we did was we took the title to the front of the reference and replaced the author with it. We do this so that we are in a position to alphabetize the source properly. The second element of a reference, an APA reference, is the date. So let's see how we present dates and what variations we may encounter. Usually, when we cite academic sources like journal articles and books, the year of publication is enough. How do we present it? We present it in parentheses and obviously followed by a full stop. Okay. Now, for sources which are published more frequently, like for instance, magazine articles, newspaper articles, web pages which are updated very frequently, uh, for those cases, the year is not enough. We need to present a full date. So let's see how we present a full date, an exact date. Uh, Again, in parentheses, starting with the year of publication, followed by a comma, and then the season or the month and the day. Next variation. Sometimes, especially when we talk about journal articles, we may come across an article which has been accepted for publication but has not been officially published yet. So this article will have an indication on it mentioning that it is in press. And this article will not have a publication date yet. If we want to cite such an article, instead of a date, since it doesn't have one, what we will place in the parentheses is the phrase in press. Lastly, what do we do if a source does not have a date at all? In that case, what we will place in the parentheses is another abbreviation, the abbreviation ND, which stands for no date. Third element, the title. Before I get into the variations and how titles are presented, let me just mention and clarify that when I mention the term title, I mean both the main title and the subtitle of a source. So I have some examples for you. This is a book cover uh, of the book Information Literacy, Essential Skills for the Information Age. So information literacy is the main title, and it is accompanied by a subtitle, Essential Skills for the Information Age. Both these comprise the title of the work. Similarly, in the case of an article, like the one on the screen, we may have the title Information Literacy Collaboration, which is the main title, and this main title is accompanied by the subtitle A Shared Responsibility. Both of them together constitute the title of the work. So let's see what we need to pay attention to with regard to titles in the list of references. I'm going to start with capitalization. APA says that titles in the list of references should be capitalized using sentence case capitalization. What does this mean? It means that we capitalize only the first letter of the title. In the example on the screen, the title is Developing a Program of Information Literacy. So what should be capitalized is the letter D at the beginning of the title. And we should also capitalize the first letter of the subtitle. In our case, How California State University Did It is the subtitle. So H should be capitalized. Okay. Now, in the case of proper nouns included in the title of a work, obviously proper nouns should also be capitalized. In our case, California State University is the name of a university. It is a proper noun. That's why it is capitalized. Second thing that we need to pay attention to, should we italicize the title or not? In some cases, titles should be italicized, and in some others, they shouldn't. The case when a source title should be in italics is if we are citing a standalone work, like a book, a journal, a web page. All of these are considered to be standalone works. If we are citing a work which is part of a standalone work, like for instance, a chapter within a book, in that case, the title of the chapter will not be in italics. So in our examples here, Australian and New Zealand Information Literacy Framework, Principles, Standards and Practice is the title of a book. That's why it is italicized, because a book is a standalone work. Whereas Information Literacy in University Library User Education, this is the title of an article. An article is not a standalone work. It is usually part of a journal, a magazine, a newspaper. That's why the title of an article will not be italicized. Now, something else that you may need to provide is parenthetical information. So information that better describes the source, such as the edition of a book, the number of a report, the translator of a book. Information like this is called parenthetical information, and it is usually placed right after the title. It accompanies the title. Such information should be placed obviously in parentheses. That's why it's called parenthetical. But notice that even if the title is in italics, like in our example here, Information Literacy Essential Skills for the Information Age, the parenthetical information is never italicized. So the parenthetical information is underlined with blue. As you can see, even if the title is in italics, the parenthetical information is not. Another case you may encounter is the case of citing what APA calls non-routine types of sources, not very often encountered types of sources. The example I have here is The Unexpected Man. The Unexpected Man is the title of an audiobook. Since an audiobook is not a very common type of book, like for instance, a print book or an ebook, what I need to do is I need to provide a description of the type of source in brackets. So what you see at the end of the title is a bracketed description of the type of work. in this case audiobook, just to make sure that the reader understands what type of a source this is. Okay. If you need to provide both descriptive parenthetical information, actually not descriptive, if you need to provide parenthetical information as well as descriptive information about the type of source, you should remember that the parenthetical information goes first. In our case here, the parenthetical information includes the name of the translator. So parenthetical information always goes first and descriptive information follows. And I will conclude with the rare case of having to cite a source which does not have a title. What do you do then? This is actually very rare, but imagine that you want to cite a picture, a photograph that doesn't have a title. In that case, what you should do is you should actually describe the source. And once you describe the source, you should place the description in brackets. So the example I have included here is the following. I wanted to cite a map, an actual map, which was showing COVID cases in Greece. So I described it as map showing the distribution of COVID-19 cases in Greece, and I enclosed the description in brackets to indicate that this is not a real title. It's a title that I invented. Okay. Last element, the location. So let's say a few things about the location in the list of references. Here we have the following variations. First of all, if we want to cite a standalone work, as we mentioned earlier, standalone works are works like books or journals or magazines or web pages. Okay. In these cases, usually presenting the publisher in the location element is enough. So if we are citing a book, we would present the publisher of the book. In the example here, the publisher is Taylor and Francis. If we are citing a part of a standalone work, for instance, an article in a magazine, in that case, the location will include information about the magazine, about the standalone work. So in our example here, this information will include the name of the magazine, American Libraries in italics, comma, the volume number in italics, the issue number in parentheses, comma, and the page numbers where the article actually appeared. Lastly, for a work that is associated with an actual place, what we include in the location element is the actual geographic location. And let me give you an example. Let's say we want to cite a conference paper presented in a particular conference that took place in a particular location. What we will include in the location element is the name of the conference where the paper was presented. In this example, Autism Society National Conference, comma, and then the actual geographic location where the conference was held. And this conference was held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, United States. Okay, now, on top of these locational information, often we will need to provide the link, the URL, or the DOI of the source. The URL, I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with this term. It's the web address of a source. The DOI is an identifier, a specific code assigned to each source by the publisher, which is very, very important because it provides a permanent location to the particular source on the web. So the DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, and APA prefers DOIs over URLs whenever they are available because they are permanent and never change. Okay, we will have the opportunity to see what the DOI looks like in the examples that follow. So let's start with our examples. I'm going to begin with a periodical article example. The first one I have here is a journal article. So a journal article reference starts with the name of the author, in this case, three authors, Berg, Hoffman, and Dawson, presented in the way we mentioned earlier. Then we have the year of publication in parentheses. Then we have the title of the source, in this case, not on the same page, undergraduates information retrieval in electronic and print books. And then we have the locational information, which in this example comprises the title of the Journal of Academic Librarianship, comma, volume 36, issue 6, comma, pages 518 to 525. And the location finishes with a link. If you notice, the link starts with https blah blah doi.org, which means that this is the DOI of the particular article, the permanent location of this particular article. The second example I have included here is from another type of periodical, a newspaper article. Again, here we start with the author, in this case, Nunberg, G. Then we continue with the publication date, which comprises a full date, the year 2005, the month February, and the day 13. And the reason why we have a full date, as we mentioned earlier, is because a newspaper publishes articles very frequently, so having the full date helps the reader identify the particular article. Then we have the title of the article, Teaching Students to Swim in the Online Sea, and the location comprises the title of the newspaper, in italics, the New York Times, and the link to the particular article. The second set of examples includes book references. So I'm starting by an example with an example of an entire book which also has a DOI. So what do we see in this example? We see the name of the author, Jackson LM. We see the year of publication, 2019. We see the title in italics, The Psychology of Prejudice from Attitudes to Social Action, and the title is accompanied by an edition statement in parentheses, second ed. And then we have the location, which comprises the publisher, American Psychological Association, and the DOI of the book. The second example I have here is from a book chapter. The book chapter is slightly different than the previous example. Let's see how. So once again, we start with the authors. These authors, Ellis, Adebonoyo, and Campbell, are the authors of the chapter. We continue with the year of publication, 2013. This is the year of publication of the book, obviously. Then we have the title of the chapter, Why Go Mobile? And then the entire thing from actually after the title of the chapter and to the end contains information about where this chapter actually appears. It contains the location of the chapter, which actually includes information about the book. So let's take its sub-element one by one to see what is included in the location element of a chapter. We start with the preposition in. The preposition is followed by the name or names of the editor or editors. In this case, we have three: A.W. Dobbs, R.L. Sittler, and D. Cook. The names of the editors are accompanied by the abbreviation eds in parentheses to signify that these are the editors. Then we have a comma. Then we have the title of the book, using LibGuides to enhance library services, Elita Guide. Notice that the title is in italics because it's the title of a standalone work. The title is accompanied by parenthetical information. The parenthesis includes the page numbers where the chapter appears, in this case PP 239 to 250, and the locational element finishes with the title, the name of the publisher, ALA TechSource. Okay, now you may be wondering, why don't I just cite the book, the entire book, in this second case? The answer is the following. There are two types of books. Okay, and I have two examples included in my presentation for you. In the first case, the psychology of prejudice from attitudes to action, I have an author, Lynn M. Jackson. This person has written the entire book. Lynn Jackson has written every single chapter in the book. And then we have the second example, using LibGuides to enhance library services, which has a set of editors. It says that it is edited by Aaron W. Dobbs, Ryan L. Sittler, and Douglas Cook, which means that the first is what we call an authored book. The book has an author, and this author has written every single chapter in the book. And then the second one is what we call an edited book. It has some editors, and what these editors have done is they have taken articles written by different people and put them together in a book. To help you understand this a little bit better, let me show you the table of contents of each one. So in the first case, I see the table of contents. I see the chapter of each, the title actually of each chapter. For instance, defining prejudice, defining differences, the evolutionary perspective, and so on and so forth. There's no name of author under each one of these titles, whereas in the second example, each chapter has an author, a different author. Chapter 1 here has was written by Jennifer Emanuel. Chapter 2 by Stephanie Delano Davis. Chapter 3 by someone else. So what does this mean? This means that in the second case, in the case of an edited book, we need to give credit both to the author of the chapter and to the editors of the entire book. That's why we present chapters of edited books in the way we saw in our previous example, in our previous slide. I'm going to finish up with the examples of references by presenting to you some web source references, and I'm going to start with a web page. The web page, I think, is the simplest type of source you will be asked to cite. When you cite a web source, a web page, you start with the name of the author, in our case, Villano M. You continue with the full date, in this case, 2020 September 24. Then you have the title of the web page. Students with special needs face virtual learning challenges. Notice that web pages are considered to be standalone works. That's why they are in italics. And then the location includes just two elements, the website, CNN in our case, and the link to the actual web page. One more example I have here for you of a web source is from an online video. We have a group author in this case, APA Help Center. We have a full date, 2012, June 8. We have the title of the video. Videos are standalone works, that's why the title is in italics, Psychology and Disaster Response. The title is also accompanied by a bracketed description video to make sure the reader understands that this is a video and doesn't confuse it with, let's say, a simple web page. And then the location includes the website, YouTube, and the link to the actual video. The next part of our presentation deals with in-text citations. And I'm going to start by mentioning what are the required elements in an in-text citation. The required elements are the last name of the author and the year of publication. There is one exception to this rule, and this has to do with what we call direct quotations. Whenever we mention a direct quotation in our text, then we also need to add a third element, which is the page number where we took the direct quotation from. Now, how do we present in-text citations? They may be presented in two ways, in two formats, as narrative citations, meaning that the name of the author is part of the text, part of the sentence, or as parenthetical citations, meaning that all elements are included in parentheses. And we will have the opportunity to see examples right away. So the first example that I have here shows you how to cite sources by one author, written by one author. So this is a paragraph from an APA paper. What you see on your screen indicated as a parenthetical citation is the citation of a source written by one author. So how do we present a citation in parenthetical format? We open the parentheses. We start with the last name of the author, in our case, Curzon, followed by a comma, and then by the year of publication. And obviously, the parenthetical citation means that both of these elements are included in parentheses. If we wanted to cite a source using the narrative citation format, what do we see here? We see that the name of the author, Bruce, is actually part of the sentence. To make things clear, Bruce states that blah, blah, blah. So a narrative citation starts with the name of the author, which is part of the sentence, and it is followed by the year of publication, in our case 2004, enclosed in parentheses, obviously. So a parenthetical citation includes all elements in parentheses. A narrative citation includes the name of the author as part of the sentence and just the year of publication in parentheses. The second example shows you how to cite a source written by two authors. I'm going to start with the parenthetical citation. In this case, we have Carr and Rockman, who are the authors. followed by 2003, which is the date, publication date. All elements are included in parentheses. And then we have an example of a narrative citation at the beginning of the paragraph. Chen and Lin, 2011, claim that blah, blah, blah. I want you to notice that if I use a narrative citation, I have to connect the two authors with the word and. If I select to use a parenthetical citation, I will connect the two authors with the ampersand, the symbol for and. Okay. Lastly, there's something else that we notice in the first citation, in the narrative citation, and this is a page number at the end of the sentence, page 407. Why do we have this page number here? The answer is that if we read our sentence, what do we see? Chen and Lin claim that what is expected of academic librarians is to help students learn how to learn. This learn how to learn is enclosed in double quotation marks, which means that this is a direct quotation. And as we mentioned earlier, if we have a direct quotation from a source, then we also need to provide the page number at the end of the sentence. Our third example includes citations of sources written by more than 3 authors. So APA says that in the case where you want to cite a source by 3 or more authors, you don't need to provide all the names. What you need to provide is the name of the first, followed by the abbreviation et al. So you may present such a citation either in narrative format or in parenthetical format. And what do we see? We see that we begin with the name of the first author, in our case, Berg. The name of the first author is followed by the abbreviation et al. Et al is a Latin abbreviation. It stands for et alii, which means and others. Okay. And then we have the year of publication, in parentheses if we are talking about a narrative citation, or after a comma if we are talking about a parenthetical citation. And what else do we see here? We also see that the parenthetical citation also includes a page number for the same reason that we mentioned in the previous slide, because our sentence includes a direct quotation. Intuitively know how to navigate and use ebooks effectively. The last example I have included here is the example of, as I call it, a secondary source, citing a secondary source. Now, very frequently, when we read an article, a source, we find other sources mentioned in it. If we want to cite one of those sources, frequently we wonder whether we need to cite that original source or the source that we are currently reading. So what do we do in this case? The correct thing to do, academically speaking, is to try to find the original source. Okay, if you cannot find the original source for some reason, then you need to clarify to your reader that you didn't read the original, and what you mention in your text is based on what you read on a secondary source. Okay, let's see this in an example. In our example here, we refer to a source written by Julian and Lecky in 1997. Okay, and we say that Julian and Lecky conducted a study in Canadian educational institutions. This is a source that we didn't actually read. we read about that source in another one, in a secondary source by Bruce and Lamson, published in 2002. So, to make sure the reader understands that we haven't read the original and we say whatever we say based on a secondary source, what do? We start with the primary source, Julian and Leakey 1997, as cited in Bruce and Lamson 2002, conducted a study in Canadian educational institutions. So by mentioning this as cited in phrase, we actually clarify that we didn't read the original. We just read Bruce and Lamson. If you need to cite a source in this way, remember that in the bibliography, you will only need to list the secondary source, the source that you actually read, the source that you actually have in your hands. Okay. Always remember that there is an interconnection between in-text citations and references. What does this mean? It means that what's in the text, for instance, Chen and Lin 2011, Berg et al. 2010, Prensky 2001, should also be listed in the references. So, Chen and Lin 2011, Berg et al. 2010, Prensky 2001. And also notice that every single source that is listed in the references should also be mentioned once, at least once, in the text. And you might be wondering, why do I need to go into all this trouble? The reason is that when your reader reads this paragraph in your paper and they notice something interesting, which according to you is something that you read in Berg et al. 2010, what the reader will do is they will take this in-text citation and they will go to the list of references at the end of your paper and alphabetically try to find the rest of the information about this source. So once they have the rest of the information, the title and location information of the source, what they can do is they can Google the source, and if they are lucky enough, they may be able to find it for free. Even if they cannot find it for free on Google, they may go to the library and check if it is available. Even if it's not available at the library, they may contact the publisher and request to buy a copy of the article. So by properly citing your sources in your text and by properly citing them in the list of references, you actually help your reader understand and get all the information they need in order to locate the sources that you have used. Okay. Now, more information on APA may be found in the APA publication manual. We have multiple copies at the library, which you can consult. You may find information on the APA style website, and you may also find information on the library's APA style guide, which is available at the library's website. And having made that point, I would like to thank you very much for watching.